Okay, here we go. Thank you for attending everyone today's webinar on managing your material scheduling and ordering for EstimatorXpress users. As you can see here on my slide. Now, today's webinar is going to be going through the process of, say, planning your, say, material ordering, your scheduling and such. It's going to be going through the filtering of materials, best how to make use of those items. It's going to be looking at, say, how you can possibly save money through that as well. So it's all in the planning. With EstimatorXpress, it's all going to be about planning for your job. You do your estimate, wonderful. You've got your material prices, you got your labor prices, and you win the job. But after this, you need some way to basically effectively look into the future and see how you need to kind of plan ahead. See what your build phase start dates are. See when you need to be ordering materials in. If there's ways to save money by bulk ordering those materials, if you're running multiple jobs, can you order materials for several at once if they're coinciding, and see how we go from there. Okay, see if that might show better. And the next thing we say on this year is basically don't let shortages and delay impact your project. So being able to look at your materials, using what knowledge you have about the industry that's coming up at the moment, what can you see that you need to ordering sooner? If you've got a list of resources with your estimate, and you've got lists of resources from other estimates, you can see that your material planning over a whole year, if not more, possibly, depending on the length of the jobs that you've got put together. So we're going to go through methods and ways of kind of looking at that. So in essence, fewer trips to the builder's merchant, less chance of costly delays because you're making those fewer journeys. You're not going to turn up and be disappointed. You've got everything pre-ordered. And the better negotiating power with bulk purchase. So with that, I'm going to move to my software. Okay. So everyone should now be able to see my EstimatorXpress software on screen. Okay. I have in front of me a large job ready to go. Like I say, job 42, large house. This is, like I say, just going to be the singular job. I'm going to go through this, but there's also things we can do in here that we can also apply to grouped jobs if you have them as well. If you've got several jobs put together, you can then use the reporting tools within group jobs to look at your, say, materials over the whole year, so you can do that bulk ordering as previously mentioned. So I'm going to open this job now. And once that's open, I'm going to have a Blue Peter moment. I've got a job ready to go. The estimating side of things is pretty much done, and I don't need to go any further with that. What I can do now is move on to the kind of output stage, where I could either go for the quoting side of things, or I can go to the project management side of things. And for the project management, one of the first things that you want to go into, and the software will always prompt you for, is to go into the build program. So I'm going to give the build program a click on the left. It's going to give me a quick prompt on if I've done any errors in my estimating. Do you want to review these? Nope. I'm just going to go straight to the build program. Now, those errors and prompts there because I might not have allocated doors and such to the proper walls within my estimate. Now, the first thing that say you're going to get with the build program is your gang sizes and such. I'm going to leave these as default. I'm going to have my build program template as a typical new build. I'm not going to override any of these to different rates or user defined durations. I'm going to let it all take its natural course and give me my build program. Now I've got onto the build program first because this is the start of our management. We might have all the materials, but they mean nothing if we've got effectively nothing to go with. Okay. If we've got say all these phases in the wrong order, then our material scheduling will be meaningless. At the moment, I have this job set to start, let's say, end of Feb. By the time I'm halfway through my masonry shell, I'm going to have reports that are going to allow me to see that I need to start looking ahead or by now ordering items for my roof structure to make they turn up on site on time, make sure I'm ready for them, whatever the lead time to the material is with defaults. You can look at those and stick to them like gospel, or you can look at them and go, right, okay, actually there's a bit more shortages, especially on the roof tiles. I'm going to be ordering them back here. I've got some other jobs that I might be looking at as well. I've got job items around that date. I can just get them all in one go. Better chance of securing all the materials I need. How you go about that can entirely depend on how your storage for those materials is going to be on site and such. So that's for your planning there. But this gives you the ability to kind of see what's coming up and plan for that. In this webinar, what we're going to be mainly focusing on is going to the outputs and using the data reports and such, so we can see that information coming through and how we can affect that. If I click on data reports there, I'm going to be presented with a large, say, list of reports. And effectively, in the background, they're all the same report, but they've all got different kind of settings and templates pre-imposed upon them to give us a set of information and how it filters out. With the say reports as they are, we can just use some default ones to have a look at the cost of the job and see how things are going to be developing on that. If I go to my, say, materials order schedule, the first one that I'm going to go to, and this is one that is bang on course for what we want to be looking at in this webinar. I'm going to open that one up there. And as that opens up, I'm presented with it's effectively a pivot table from Excel, but just a little bit fancier and built into the software. With this, the first column I can see here is order by date. Now, the order by date is entirely dictated by two factors. The build program that I've just gone through and set the beginning of each phase. I've not adjusted the defaults that the software has presented, which is the minimum build times it sees as needed required for what we've got estimated so far, which is a large house with two protrusions, two apex roofs leading into a large apex roof, two small bifold doors and such. So I've quite a fair amount in there, lots of electrics, lots of plumbing to kind of bulk it out and give us lots of items to look at, lots of data. And the second thing that applies that order by date is in every material, there is a order by date. If you ever created a material in the software on the fly or in the price book in training, you'll see that there is an order by input that you can dictate your own, or you can leave as default from within the software. Now, the software's one is a very generic one. It's based on the standard lead times assumed for those types of materials, their kind of supply chain on an average year. Of course, currently it's not an average year. It's not been an average 2 years. So with this data presented in front of you, you can look at this beforehand and make your own judgments on that. You could go change the items in the software, but then that means next year they may not be relevant. So you just can look at this and start going, okay, let's look at the first things in our material schedule. Okay, the first bit materials we need to order. We've got footings, engineering bricks, facing bricks, and solid dense concrete blocks. A lot of longer lead time. And in my masonry shell, I've got facing bricks that need to be ordered. Now these are appearing before you even get to the foundations on this screen. That's because, as the software dictates, as it sees it, as we've seen it, the bricks are going to be much longer on the lead time than being able to order concrete. Concrete is not as much of the shortage as there was the bricks when that data was input. Again, things like pitch polymers, shorter lead time, then back to the ready mix for footings and oversight slabbing. Then we get to our masonry shell stuff with more, like I said, the windows to go in for that phase. And then much closer to the actual start date, site setups, then the footings, oversight slabbing, and then more back to masonry shell. So it's not ordering by the phase, it's just seeing that grouped together, the materials, we can see, okay, these materials got the longest lead time, we need to look at these first, get them in. You can then order everything up so that including the stuff that you need on the day or the day before in that initial order. So you can look at your first material that you need to order and get the whole order done in one go. So I can see here now that if I've got the 4th of January, which say is already gone, as my order by date for my engineering bricks and facing bricks, I can use the report to go, okay, what else is in the build phases that I need to get in there? So I can click on the pin in the report. I can go to footings and click on there, and I can see, okay, that's all the materials I need to order out for this now, to make sure that by the time I start the job, they're going to be there available for me on time. And these are just going to be the materials, as I scroll across now, that are needed for that phase. So I'm not over ordering. If I do have the space on site that I can store more materials, I can store all the bricks. I do have a, say, a small compound or lockup I can put materials in, then go ahead, order everything in beforehand. Make sure you've got enough bricks to finish the whole job in one go. Yeah, you might want to order the roof tiles much earlier and have them in the compound, locked up securely. But as I can see this now, I can see I have in my footings all across here, I'm going to just put my resource description as the first column, just moving that across, just dragging it across so I can see all my building sand bulk bags put together. And from this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click Show Row Totals at the top, so everyone can see that. And with that building sand, say blue circle mastercrete, so I come across, not scroll too fast, I can see that. There we go, I've got my cost of the concrete for that beginning of that phase, £131.75. And my order quantities in this column here. So wastage quantity, including altering quantity there, so it's 27.16. So factoring in the fact that I've got some wastage in there, I could just go ahead and order 27 bags. Now for this job, I've not done any rounding beforehand. So this is the material quants plus wastages that they appear as directly estimated. So we're not rounding up to any whole sections just yet, at the very least anyway. I can go back to that towards the end of the webinar, and we can have a look at how the rounding tool can affect the estimate. So I can see there I need 27 bags. I can see that for my building sand bulk bag. Again, as I come across, I can see the quantities there. Now, if I find that I've got too many columns, there's a lot of columns in here. So I've got resource quantity excluding wastage, resource quantity altering the order, and then the final number. Then I've got my money values. I could see that. I could just want to take out that column there. And to do so, these are the items here. Everything in this right-hand side is the field list. The field list is the kind of home of all the kind of options that you can take in and out of the main page of the report, as it were. It's a very useful section because it allows us to completely customize the report. I can take everything out and it'll just look like a basic cost report. I can put in an extra column that shows me what the cost is once I've included the profit markup or my journal markups. For this now, I'm just going to take out the items with cost. I'm going to put them back in the filter at the top. I'm just going to drag them out. There we go. So now I've only got 3 columns. Much less to look at. And with this now, I'm going to put build phase first. So there's less filters. There we go. You'll see as well, as I look at this report, I can move these column headers by clicking and dragging. By hovering over an empty space, left click, I can move that to the other side. And you'll see how the row totals kind of add up there. So I've got my footings total at the bottom now. It just basically groups everything together with the row totals. If I take this over the side there, I get a complete longhand breakdown for everything by date, what it's been used for, and then the material, which doesn't make sense. So it's better off putting the resource description possibly there, so things are grouped by date. Or if I put it before the date, I get the resource there, and then the dates it will appear on. Put the date at the end. Not so tidy, not so tidy. Now, one of the things you can do with this as well is once you have tinkered with a report, you can export that out to Excel, or we can export it out as a CSV file. So those options live at the top here. So you can just send it out as the kind of XLS or the CSV. I shall do that in a report in a bit. If you find yourself you're tinkering a report and you kind of look at your dates when your things need to be ordered, you can always just go, oh, hang on, it's all gone chaotic. I'll just restore report and put it back to the way it was. And it puts it back to where it was. The handy thing with these reports is you can also copy an existing report. That's very similar to something you may want. You can copy that report, give it a name, a comment if you want, click OK. And I'll be now working in a report that's identical to the one before. I can make changes to this. Oh, I've clicked on CIA instead. There we go. Misclick. I can make changes to this report now. I can hit Save Report, and that report will be saved to my software for the next job. So if you customize a report to give you the precise information that you want to see within your reports, that your accountant wants to see, or your builder ordering needs to see, then you can then just save that and save the trouble each time of having to produce a report. It's going to be there ready for you. I'm going to take a look at another report now. I'm going to have a little look at the quotation inquiry. Much in a similar way that I looked at the last report, and I removed the costs to that report. What I can do This one basically has no costs to it. It's just a pure quantity report. And this report sits ideal as something to get quotes off merchants or send as orders to merchants. Hence where it's grouped initially as, say, by resource type. If you want to say, I want to put an order in to the merchant and order all and pay for, say, possibly all of the aggregates initially, say at least order them and then pay for them as they're delivered, you can do so. That way then you're securing with the merchant the future orders all in one go because you know exactly how much you're going to need. You have that agreement with them that on these dates that they can deliver them. And as they deliver them and your cash flow allows, you can then pay for those deliveries as they come. Again, the filters can play a useful part in this. If you have a merchant, like I have nearby, like Brimstone or Rings, that focus on certain types of materials. They don't do timber, they don't do glass, no, they don't do plastics, something like that. They just do, say, aggregates and concrete products and blocks. And in the case of Brimstone, do stone products. We can click on that resource filter and say, I just want to look at aggregates, blocks, concrete, and concrete products in my quote. I can then see this much more filtered down list of items. I could then take this out to Excel, or I can just remove these, say, the wastage column and the pre-wastage column, and just leave the post-wastage column and export that as a report, which I could do now. Or I could use that straight out to Excel or CSV and make changes in there. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to take this report and export it as, say, an Excel calculation style. On my desktop quickly. And open that up there. Okay, so now we have our XLS in the calculation style. So I have my aggregates grouped, and I have my figures all here as well. If in Excel Whiz, I know some people are, they can use that the rounding in that if they need to. Just to give you a comparison as well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to export this out in the presentation style. Give that 2 as a name. So the presentation style, this is more for reports you might, including your markups and such, you might show customers, but it has the kind of columns that you can expand upon. So the merchant might not so much prefer this one, but other people might see, okay, let's look at your aggregates. What have you got under cements, and see all those items there. What have you got under blocks? What items have you got under concrete? Just allows you to kind of fold things up and dive into them individually. And then old school CSV file. So no fancy formatting on the columns at all. Perfect for, say, someone who likes their data inputs and such, sending to an accountant if you've got what the guns would items would cost in there. And close that one down. With this information, I'm say coming from the build program, we can see when our materials need to be ordered by. We have that column available to us. We can see what materials need to be ordered. And if we stick to those, say, quantities turning up on site and those quantities being paid for as we go along, we can even make use of cash flow as well. So there is a cash flow report. that will use the information from the materials themselves and the say build program, you can chart in there, to figure out when your material price will say you need to pay for the materials that you've ordered based on what's in there. It may not be exclusive the same as to what you've got within the with the merchant, so they want it paid off a bit sooner or a bit later. This is just to give you a solid indication as to kind of the cash flow you'd be expecting across that job. So I can see that for all the initial materials coming out that I need to pay for. So those first kind of few items that I've ordered on the 4th of January, their payment schedule will land me by the 7th of March that I need to have that paid for with my merchant. And also that'll also be then in this report combining the labor that needs to be done by that phase as well. So that's going to be the first few days of labor by the beginning of March as well. So I look at that and I can see, okay, that this is the cash flow, the items coming out on each of those dates based on the material ordering. So you can be grouping some of these prices together and you can see your kind of cumulative cost by the job. So by the, say, 24th of the 5th, we can see that the cumulative cost of the job up to that point is 165,596.20 pence. And that's just basing this upon the say program that we've started. So if we was to start extending phases or moving them around, so if things start later, this cash flow will start looking different. There's also other tools within the software as well that will allow you to kind of build a payment program with the customer as well, which we can look at in just a moment. Just to say, make sure everyone is aware, there is a questions box for those attending this via the GoToWebinar that you can pop any questions in and I can answer for you there. For those viewing on YouTube, there you can just type into the chat and I'll be able to see them come through and have a little look and see if I can answer those questions. If they're pertinent to the section we're in now, then I'll answer them for you there. If not, we can have a little chat at the end to go through anything anyone has any questions about, anything I've kind of discussed. So with this kind of method, so hopefully kind of we touch on the areas that you need to be looking at to kind of manage your materials, the areas that will affect kind of ordering and how to kind of manage and group those together. Because we looked at, say, the order schedule and also say quotation inquiry as a way to order that. But if you have questions about them, or you have other questions about, say, managing using other reports, please let me know and I'll go for them for you. In reference to an item I mentioned just now, which was the ability to kind of, instead of just having a cash flow report, as we've got here, there are also stage payment tools within the software. Many of you may already have this. I'm going to go into that section now. And the stage payment is all about setting up an agreed billing intervals with the customer, either beginning and end of phases or regular intervals, what deposit to take. And this is going to be then basing those costs on the phases start and beginning and ends based upon our main estimate and our build program. I'm going to have a little tinker in here. So for those of you that have not seen the stage payments before, have not used it, this is a extremely useful tool for just kind of getting in an agreement down with a customer on what you can say, what you're going to be charging them, what they can expect, and it's going to be no nasty surprises as we come along as well. The default for this is, say, it's not got a deposit taken at the beginning. It's got bill at start and end of build phase dates. And what that means is if I go to this, say, build phase charging methodology, it just means that at the beginning of a phase, it's going to charge customer for materials, and at the end of the phase, it's going to charge them for labor, plant, subcontract, and sundry. This can be tweaked so that you can group the payments for phases. So you can have the site set up charged with the oversight and slabbing, commencement charged with the oversight and slabbing, foundations with oversight and slabbing, and footings with the oversight and slabbing. If I save that, what that'll do then is group those items together. There you go. So a much larger upfront cost. So we've got all the labor, say beginning at the beginning of that, and then the costs at the end. I can even tick a box to set a deposit. I can even go to say 20% deposit, deposit date, click today, and have that taken on the 24th, Monday the 24th. Apply that. I can see then I have a deposit taken of nearly 66,000, ready to start the job. Now, this information, as I'm tweaking it here now, so I can see I've got a front load of cash, I'm grouping the first few phases together as one payment, can affect its own cash flow report. And the incredibly useful thing about this report is that I can see the cumulative and my cash flow and my in and outs. So this is looking again at the material payments and the labor payments based on the phases. And I can see that if I've got an in cumulative revenue of 79,000 at the very beginning, and then I've got straight away, say within a month, I've got the 2,000, 2,900, 5,000, 6,200, and then 73,000 in one go there. My cash flow takes me down to, because of what my initial charge is, to 5,496. It's low, but I'm not in the negative. At any point am I funding the job. My deposit's high enough to make sure that all payments are covered with a little bit leeway there, that for say £5,500. So using this cash flow and the terms of, if you've agreed with the customer, we know we've got enough money to continue the job from that point onwards. I've got another say 10 grand coming in at the end of March, which keeps us afloat. Take 16, 12, and then a little while after that, another 65 or 66 based on the phases completed. And so forth. So if I scroll down and continue scrolling, eventually we come to the cumulative money coming in and what we've got left. So at the end of the cash flow, 80 grand based on our profit on everything, and that's after everything's come out. Now the most dangerous part is usually the beginning or the mid of the job, because when certain things stretch out and the payments are not coming in. So we can use this as a kind of predictive text for the job as it's planned. If I go back to my, if I go back to the settings here, I can go bill at regular intervals and bill at every 30 days with a interim billing period of £30. I can set the billing start date as the first, or say end of Feb, or the 1st of March. Apply that. So it's going to ignore the beginning of build phases and end of build phases. And if I bill it every 30 days, I can see that by 18th of April, I've got costs coming out that will then suddenly render me funding the job. So this is not good. Or as the Germans would put it, das ist nicht gut. It's kaput. You're going to be 20 grand out of pocket and hoping that things go well on that point and you've got enough money in the bank to continue on. So looking at this, fund interim billing of every 30 days might not be so grand, or we need to have an absolutely whopping deposit. this is where, say, having the kind of billing by phase can be a little bit more useful. If I change that billing down to a set interval to every, say, 15 days, apply that, see how that looks. Okay, billing period of every 15 days. So you can have the 1st and the 16th of every month. That takes us down to a low point of 2,809, say 39. So that would be the bill effing accumulated by that period. So revenue 139 in, well, say 143,393 coming in at that point. So that's quite a huge chunk of the job at the beginning. Now that's, again, I think at the start of the job, any front-loaded costs kind of coming in through there. Again, that might be something that discuss with the customer and go, okay, how are we going to, like say, that's quite a steep payment, and we can do that in one go, or is it going to be, again, 2 payments? However you want to manage that. The key principle of this cash flow report is to show you those points when the cost coming out for the materials that you need to pay for and the cost coming out for the labor you need to pay for at those phases are going to be, say, hitting you hard. And from your own experience and such, you would know when those times are coming up in the job, when the expensive sections coming up. If there's lots of steel work coming up, you know that the material price, if it's not already agreed, you might get stung for that. So you need to make sure you've got that cash flow covering you. And if you can produce a report like this and you're sticking fairly close to the dates, then you know that you have that cash flow backing you up to make sure that you've got some, say, liquid cash available to cover any kind of, like, say, either small increases or, say, emergencies on site. You know, if you like, say, if your JCB breaks down, you need to spend £1,000 fixing it. You know, you've got enough cumulative profit at that point, or say cash flow, to kind of cover you there. So is there any questions about the stage payments that anyone wants to ask at this point? Okay, so very good for questions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to move on to another section. Okay. As mentioned earlier on, I said about rounding. I'm going to do a quick trip into the world of the rounding tool. And then I'm going to go back to the report so we can see some of those figures a little bit more tidied up and see how they go. I'm going to go to my main estimate. There we go. And in here, I have my resource quantity rounding. Now, the resource, say, substitution rounding is all about taking, say groups of materials and applying, there we go, to that section, a default factor to them to take them up to the nearest whole amount. And this can apply to materials. So you don't order half a bag of cement, you'll order, like say, a whole bag of cement, a whole skip. But also with labor, taking it up to the nearest hour. And you can also override that to take it up to the nearest 4 hours, the nearest 8 hours, or even just override it yourself manually and change it. So it starts off with significant rounding costs. And it's got default roundings to take it up to whole items. So if concrete, membranes, insulation, lead takes it up to a whole roll. This is their order quantity. So if I go to that lead again, instead of ordering, say 5.2 rolls, it's going to order 6 rolls of lead. So that's the kind of effect this will have on the quote. Same with the plant. You can see the say engineering bricks. Other items, it's going to be rounding up there as well. And I can have a look at the rules applied within this job. So this would be everything that is applying these rules to now, and I can go through and have a look at them. There's quite a lot in here. So I could say, okay, I'm going to not look at the materials, I want to look at the labour, and I'll maybe want to override something in here because I want to give them a bit of extra time because they might be working weekends. It's not kind of reflected on the Gantt chart and such, or you want to have them there for a bit longer than what the software is estimated for. Now we could look at our bricklayer's mate, and we go, okay, right, he's been rounded up to 21 hours. I'm going to go to manual entry, and we got 16, 24. So I could put him to 24 solid hours for bricklayer's mate. So that's just not including that's just going to be the tasks he's doing on his own. You know, he's going to be factored into the 2 bricklayers and a mate for the most of the work going on. But this just means that when it comes to paying him for doing stuff on his pleb, we've got 3 solid days in there for him instead. And it's an extra 45 quid on top. There's less management for that. This becomes in particular handy when we are looking at trades that really don't want to turn up for a half day's work as well. Say like your plumbers and your electricians. You know, they turn up. They're not going to turn up, fit one tap, and go home again. You know, they're going to charge you for the nose for that. So you can factor in someone coming in and doing, say, the whole job, or a whole day's worth of work. When this has come across most frequently is in, like, say, smaller jobs. If you're doing a renovation job and you've got a painter showing up as 4 hours, you can go into the tool here and you can click manual entry and override that to the nearest full day for them. Okay, there are some, you can do tools where you can add a rule that will define how the resource is done. So add a rule for resource type decorator, or this specific resource, or type labor with unit hours. So you can do all the labor. I can add a rule that affects all labor and rounds it to the nearest 8 hours. If I click OK, you'll see that all my hours are now rounded to the nearest whole days. So I'm never going below a day's pay for this. So I can change the rule to be the nearest 4 hours. So at the very least, you're paying someone half a day to do something. But this now, by going to the whole full days for all the labor, it's going to add 7,452 plus whatever the material rounding is on there as well. So that's a big difference on the job that we could have been missing out on. I'm going to go back to resource rounding, and I'm going to add this to the job. It's going to give me a quick prompt about items that need a item rounded as specified. I'm going to just click OK for the defaults. And that's going to be done. Just to note, there are 2 ways that this is applied to the estimate. The default one is it's going to add in a calculator called rounding, or for the rounded items. So we can go in there, we can see everything that's been added on. The other way is more inclusive, but harder to look at and filter out if we need to, which is adding everything to the calculators they originally come from, which is tidier in a way, but harder to kind of see what you've done. I'm going to close that now. I'm going to see about my rounding. Click on my estimating calculators. Do I have value on that? Check my rounding, yep. Okay, yes, I'm going to play that rule. Oh, that's material, go to labor. It's already there. Good. Right. So once I've done my rounding, I can go back to my outputs. Sometimes, by the way, it's the same scrolling. What you can do is just click the little up arrow next to the box to kind of bring things kind of tidied up again. I go back to my data reports. And go to my quotation inquiry. Okay. So I didn't wholly apply my rounding, but now I can go through. I'm going to clear these filters. That should be material. There we go. So then that start affecting, say, the whole numbers for the jobs and the resources coming through. So then we're going to be, say, don't have to worry about. We can remove half these columns for the wastage, or say the pre-wastage and what the wastage cost is. We can just look at the order quantity and see the whole number there. Right, I'm going to have a sip on my drink and quickly pause my screen while I do so. I'm going to click on some things and check some stuff. If you have any questions, please drop them into the questions box on screen or onto the chat on YouTube. We can get through them very soon. Oh, apologies, didn't mute my microphone when I had a drink. Just become my own worst enemy. Folks, say, don't be shy with the questions. More than happy to kind of go through anything that you want to have a little word about. So, as I mentioned earlier on, you can look at your materials ordering across several jobs. It's one thing to look at a report for, say, your materials, say, quotation inquiry, see the grand total of everything you need to order for a job, which you then take to the merchant and say, okay, right, I'm going to be ordering this much in one go, and see how you go, see how you fare, if they've even got it in stock. But if I go back to my dashboard, I'm going to save this job. I'm not going to have a quote from them just yet. There is a feature called group jobs. And grouped jobs allow me to take several estimates and put them together. I'm going to go create new group of jobs. Demo group 1, group description, houses, click OK. I'm going to bring in my, like I said, my large house there. Add that in. Okay, there's my large house, my one job. What I'm going to quickly do is I'm going to just go back to my my dashboard. I've got that job saved. I'll say save that group of jobs to my desktop. I've only got the one, say, job in there. If I go my large house, I'm just going to do a quick copy of that job. Save that one again. Open it up. And this is where you say if you've got multiples of the same thing, you can be saving a lot of time copying an existing job, updating the prices on it, and then reissuing that quote once you any kind of major changes, such as, like, say, brick type or whatnot. Get cracking with it. going to pop to the build program. I'm going to change the start date of this one to 2 weeks later. That might be a conflict. Let's go 4 weeks later. We'll bump this whole along a whole month. We'll go back to dashboard, which I'm going to cancel. I'm going to go into the outputs just so it kind of it sticks. And I'm going to go back to the dashboard and save that. Go back to my group jobs. Okay, so I've got my demo group there with one job in. I've only clicked one when I started it. I would have clicked more than one if I had the jobs ready. But if you've already got a group done and you want to add another one to it, I can go, there's my job, 43 large house 2. And it gets added to my group of jobs. So this group of jobs can be anything. It could be a complex job that has several things to it. Say a house that has a loft conversion extension on the front, extension on the back. You've done 3 estimates, so the customer can pick and choose, because if they're going to be flaky and they don't want their loft conversion done, you can just remove it from the group and job done. What I'm going to do here on this one is I'm going to go to my outputs for these groups, for these 2 jobs together. I'm going to go to the data reports. I'm going to see the quotation inquiry for both jobs. So now I can see on here now that for my blue circle Mastercrete concrete cement, I've got 540 bags across both jobs in total. So that's where that bulk purchasing starts coming in, or bulk negotiation starts coming in. A merchant wants to secure a sale of 540 bags of cement with you. They can do it right there. They know that you're going to need that many. They can say they can provide that or not. They can make an agreement to that, and you can negotiate yourself a price for that full amount across both jobs, because you know you're going to need them. So, say if you find that bit of information useful, you know, if I'm going off track to what you want to see about, say, managing materials and such, there, please let me know. Just raise your hand, use a little raise hand icon, use the question box freely to kind of drop your questions my way. It's one thing to watch. I've got a few things I wanted to show you in this. You know, we've been here about an hour now, going through some of the key points. You know, if there's anything you particularly want to know or have questions about, please let me know. The funny old game of this is that for all of you watching, every single one of you's got a different way you want to look at something. And there's a good few names in here I actually recognise as well, who've asked me similar questions about how stuff has been done. So while I'm in my my group of jobs here, I'm still going to use the report section, just have a little tinker around in here, just so you can see how useful the reports are. I'm going to do that. I'm going to go to my costs. I'm going to go to a cost report, because a cost report is empty. There's naffle to it. Okay, all we've got is a build phase, cleaning, commencement, completion, such. It's all out of order. It's out of order because it's all in, well, it's alphabetical order. If I want to put that in a sensible order, probably the best one to use over here in this hidden field list is the dates required. Okay, if this isn't showing for you, if it's like that, you can turn it on at the top there in the ribbon, hidden field list. And that brings that up. And the most useful one is date required. Now to bring that onto the screen so it's somewhat useful, I can left click and drag. And as I hold it over, I get some little arrows indicating where I can place it. Also, just as well, if you can see this clearly on my screen, brilliant. If you can't, or you want me to change to a different background, let me know again as well. But now I've got that, say, date required on there. You can see my site setup and commencement with it are same times for date required. And I've got my foundations and such. The information up here is being doubled up. So I can untick show row totals because I don't need everything being shown twice, effectively. So I can just look through and I can see everything in order now. Of how it's all required. Okay, so everything's nice. Date required ordered. Then grouped by build phase. I can then have a look about something else to bring in. I can look under job reference, bring that in. Use the auto fit there. Then I can see, okay, right, starting on that date, commencement large house, then commencement large house 2, based on those dates. If I move that across there, I can see my large house and my large house 2 and the dates they need to go on, and it could be convenient that way. I still reckon it's more convenient to have it to the right of the date required. Because that way then I can look at my calendar, once I know what day it is, right, look at this sheet and go, right, okay, today's so-and-so for this job, footing. Or say on this day we're doing footings on large house 1. So we can build a nice little train of information. See where stuff's coming from, I'll see where it's going. In the same vein as this, we can use reports to kind of find out where something's coming from. You could be looking at something and go, why have I got costs in completion? What's the completion cost? What's this £192 coming from? You know, what on earth is that? And go, well, okay, I can scratch my head. I could use, say, some of the tools in the quote template and take cost breakdown to have a little look for that. But the reports give us a great tool to see this as well. So just an example of how you can kind of find out where some material items are coming from. You can go, okay, I'm just going to bring an estimate and calculate a name. Pop that in there. Is a long one. Might actually move that to the after build phase. There we go. Groups things up a bit better. Scroll to the bottom. My completion. Okay, estimate and calculate a name. PVCU rear. Okay, let's get auto fit on that now. There you go. PVC rear door, typical fire doors, typical panel doors. Why is completion showing up, and why have I got PVC rear door showing up as a completion item? So I can then go to my filled list and go, okay, item used for. That's a good one. That'll tell me what that's been doing. Drag that across to that column there. Scroll down again because it just makes everything huge because that's a very, very big report one. Might also fit that. Give that a few seconds. By the way, where you've got a really lot amount of information on screen like this, you have to give it a few seconds to kind of chug through and calculate. Because even if you've got lots of cores, it takes a second to crunch through all that information. And give that a moment. It's exciting stuff. Yeah. Have a good think. But yeah, it's basically it's just like auto fitting the entire column and making sure all the data's in the right order. So give it a moment. The shorter the report, the quicker it does it. So, spoiler alert, before it gets there, it's going to say item used for returns a hang door. I'll just have to wait for it to finish and show me. There we go. So return to ease door. Okay, so now I know what it's doing. I can either go, oh, right, okay, right, ignore that. Take it off, let the customer know that it's just going to be its cost for a return visit at a later date to make sure everything is working fine, or you can go into the calculators and say not required, or even put, if you want to keep that 192 quid, put it back in to change the build phase to something else. But that's what that exists for. So you can use the reports to kind of filter information out, see where stuff's coming from as well, or what certain costs are doing. So then you know that what you're looking at in your quote is going to be very representative. You've got no surprises. The reports don't have surprises in. You can use this to go through and filter information down to give you that much better kind of view on things. I can actually use the build phase here to just look at the, so having the whole thing. I can just look at all the completion items. There we go. Turn to each door. And see what the resource is in there as well. So resource type, carpenter. There we go. That's what they're doing. The resource type. What's a carpenter? It's a labour. Who'd have known? So you again, the thing I'm trying to get across here is how using the reports can let you filter information, so you can see the end result. You can see what to expect from this. And by using something like this for the quotation inquiry, say, or materials used, you can reduce those number of trips to the merchant. You can plan deliveries if it is possible. You know, if the delivery drivers haven't all gone off to become bidmen or drive HGVs, then you know that for yourself, you know what you need to do. You can plan your say trips to the merchant that little bit much more say reliably. You know how to do that round trip in the morning when you go, well, okay, before we get to site, we've got to drop off at the merchants, pick up a few bags of cement, then head off back to site, or we've got to drop by the merchants in the morning, pick up a few lengths of fascia, then head back to site. Pop by the merchant in the morning, pick up a few rounded ridge tiles and a couple of verge clips, get back to site. These kind of things, like say, because you have them all there prepared for you with dates next to them, you can see that you can almost plan a shopping list of what's going to be coming up and how much of each item you're going to need. So again, I've gone into a materials used. It's grouped everything together by, say, build phase, so I can look at all the electricals, all the footings, all the foundations, all the internal decorations. Not done any kind of date on this one. I can use the filter to go, okay, I'm going to look at my footings, foundations, my oversight and slabbing. Just those three items there. I can see all the resources required for this at the beginning of the job. I can see how much it's going to cost. I can see what's purchased in. Well, quite a few items over in my my field here about how much quantities of such, excluding the such there. So I'm just going to take these out. Take out the altering factors, and I can just see then the quantities I need and the cost of them. There we go. Nice and straightforward. I can see how much I need, and I can then reduce the number of say inquiries I need to make and go from there. I am going to finish this webinar off in a moment officially with the slideshow that we've got, say for the last few ones to do, and then I'm going to open up the floor for a Q&A session. So any questions anyone has, please fire them through to me. You know, I am your host and your captive right now. Fire away. Okay, so first off, so get those questions in the box and we'll go through them in a moment. There we go. Doing that properly now. So for those that have attended today, if you have expired support or if you have support coming up very soon, there is a 10% off EstimatorXpress support update renewals and upgrades if you act within 7 days of this session. So you've got a week to capitalize on that offer. And with that as well, you can have one of these conversations one-to-one and ask me your questions on the phone. Give me a grilling. See how we get on. Next month, I will be doing a smart scheduler demonstration. So it's one of the newer bonus packs within the software. It's all about the post-estimate phase of the job. Okay. What we've looked at today is the reports that let you plan ahead. Get your job plan cost in so you don't lose money as you go through. That your payments are going to be good enough that you're not going to miss out. What materials you're going to need, and you can bulk order them. You can use those reports as you go through the job, but there are times when the labor is not going to be available. You need to swap it over someone else. The material might not be available. You need to swap it over someone else. The software is estimated for a roofer within there. There might be a gang, but your gang might not be available. You're going to have to get a subby gang in. What you can do is you can use the smart scheduler to swap out those elements to be supplied by someone else, be it a material resource, or more frequently, you can say swap out a labor resource so you can bring in a different gang, subby gang, and have that put in there instead. Okay, but it can only be anything from replacing your cladding with a cedral cladding or something like that, how the ordering goes through. Okay, and we can have a look at that next month, and there will be an offer on that as well. So to sum up today's demonstration, rounding order materials, quantities, and its impact on your quote. Review the build program at the beginning. There, we haven't reviewed the inflation tool, so I can do that in just a moment. And say our time-based reports for, say, cash flow to go through. Okay. Now I'm going to dabble in those sections, but say the floor is now open for the Q&A. So the mention about the inflation tool for the job. I'm going to come across to, go back to my dashboard. I'm going to go back into a specific job itself. The inflation tool will be available within the estimate. There we go. Open up my large house, my original. And within the estimate itself, what we've got under job settings, now you'll find this under the library outside of the estimate, but within the job, you have your overhead, profit, and inflation. I'm not going to review those. Just means I'm not excluding the amount of brickwork and blockwork I actually need to. And in your estimates, you're going to have your inflation rates as an input. So we've got 5% with a 12-week delay. That means from the price of the material within the price book, it will be timing basically before it puts a 5% increase on by default. So price book date, if it was today, 12 weeks from today, everything that will occur post that time in my build program, so be it materials, labor, anything like that, that gets ordered after that, will be 5% more costly. And it's cumulative, so after that, it should be after another 12 weeks, gets another 5%. So that will cover you for certain increases over time. This has actually been figures that we've had in the software for a while. over the last year, many people have increased the materials percentage much higher, or put the delay down much shorter, or putting the labour, plant and such, sundry and subcontractors down because you don't need to inflate them as much. It's been the materials that's been the real stinger. Our tracking, by the way, shows timber prices have started levelling, but say the old adage goes, rises like a rocket, falls like a feather. So we'll see how we get on with that. But the concrete products are still increasing, and still increasing. And so materials we track there. Labour, again, that's been trade specific about what's been in demand. You know, brickies can charging what they want. I obviously was in the wrong trade. So that's the start point of how you plan that. That will then feed through to either a report, which is an inflated costs, or we can go to the outputs under the quote for main estimate. I load up my quote. And then the main settings, because it will go to the de facto what page we're looking at on screen. And we can tick include inflation and apply that change. Then it uses that information, and then the quote you provide will be based upon those costs. Okay, so that's the kind of inflation tool there. And going back to the mention of profit, very similar to our cash flow, the profit forecast report, again, is based upon payments coming in, as I say, by default, the phase. So this can vary if you're using the stage payments to have different points of what your profits coming in. You've got different payment dates from the beginning of each phase. But the cost of each phase, what's going to be applied from them, is what you're going to be kind of like cumulative here. So even if it's not going to be marrying exactly to your stage payments, you can see that by these dates, this should be the kind of profit that you'll be seeing based on your, say, 15% markup by default. It's one of the reasons why the markup at 30% is split between the overheads and the profit, so we can then get a more accurate report of what the profit's going to be. Previously, in older iterations of the software, for many of that might have had those versions, it would have just been a flat 30%, in which case you would then have to take that figure, divide by 2 to get kind of net. We're much more simplified these days. So that was just to say quick look at the profit forecast. But there's any questions to come through? Okay, yeah. So question about, say, the kind of the basic reports at the top there. Now, the basic reports are pretty much as they say on the tins. They open up a painting report. It's just going to be going straight to the painting type. So if you want to see what your raw painting costs for this house is going to be, excluding profit markup and VAT, we can see that it's going to be costing £7,715.97 to paint this house. Okay, that's all the decorating aspects. So if you need to know at a quick glance of what a cost of something might be, or the effect of something, we can have a quick look in here without having to go through those other, say, reports and filter them out manually. It's just a nice little dash in there, see the plastering costs. But just to point out as well, we can still tinker with these and have a little filter. If I go to resource, go to, say, type of resource and just drop that in there. I've got material as a filter and labor, so I can see what my labor costs of the plastering is and what my material costs are. So if you have someone coming in to do the plastering for you, in total, if I go show row totals again, I can have my labor total available to me. I can see I've got just shy of 14.5 grand for the plastering to be done for labor. So if someone says, I'll plaster the house for you for 12 grand, bonza, you're 2.5 grand up if they can do it. You can still put your profit markup on what they're going to do. You can still charge a customer what that is there, but you know that if someone's come, you've put this job out to tender for some other gangs, and they say, yeah, I'll do the labor for that amount. You know that you can say then be in the profit on that. If other people are coming to you and going, okay, now I'll do that for say 16 grand, or I'll do this for that. If you haven't got your own gang resources to rely upon, you have to bring in subcontracts to do these things. Then you can go, okay, right, I'll make an agreement with them. Haggle them down to the 14.5. Use a bit of your overhead or other costs in there, like say the slush money that you get from your wastage costs, to see if you can cover it up from the materials wastage. See if you can take it up to, like, say, agree at 15 grand, or you go, okay, right, I might need to re-estimate this. My labor rates might be a bit low. Before I issue the quote to the customer, roll it back a bit, go into your materials price book, or say your labor price book, adjust the labor prices in there to be in line to be what you're commonly quoted. Because if either you're say with the labor prices, that's something for you to manage. So that's the kind of the indication. Then you can see if you're going to need to update those as well. So you can come into these sections and have a quick glance and gander at the prices involved. Yeah, so a question about, say, the labor time schedule. So having a pop into there. So the labor time schedule is, again, it's like the material order list in many ways, whether there is a labor order list. It's just going to give you the number of hours that each labor is going to be doing. And it does start off with listed by build phase. It's in alphabetical order, not by date. So we can make this much more useful for us, possibly, by adding in a date for us. So that would be, if I close that resource down, just go date required as the first one. Just drag that in. Okay, so on the 28th of the 2nd, I'm going to need a ground worker, and he's going to be there for 32 hours. We've got site set of general labour, 16 hours. I haven't got any costs to this one. It's just what they are. Resource quantity cost is actually a bit of a dud one in that one. So that one. So I'll take that, go for presentation style, export that out. And there you go. Expand all those. Okay, so I can have a look at this presentation style. Okay, right. Beginning of March, what have I got? Okay, I've got foundations, ground workers. Okay, I've got 48 hours of ground worker to pay on this one coming out this week. Just key bits of information there that we can use. I'm going to save that. Again, you can use something like this as well if you want to filter it down a bit further for getting information out to your accountants and such, to give them to see how many hours of a certain labour has been done over the course of a job. If you use by date, then the accountant might appreciate that. If you use by build phase, that might be so important to them. You could take that out and put it up there. Or actually put in another resource type. resource description. So put resource types, a good group the ground workers together. I'll take that one out. So yeah, so filter it down a little bit further. Okay, any more questions to come in there as we go from this? So if you've got the software open yourself, you've already got it, you can like say have a little look, quick poke now, see if there's any reports that you want to be having a kind of like look at. Any questions about filtering? Hopefully, say filtering is something that say everyone's got say like at least some grasp on or know that it can be done. It's one of the things we kind of look at within the training, so that the often what can be described as an overwhelming amount of information, which can be off-putting, can be kind of brought to rein, as it were. You can take that information, filter it down to something that's much more manageable, understandable, and actually makes sense. There's a lot of time, sea of information, for some people, it's not going to be the kind of most useful thing to them. But for others that absolutely lap up the information, they're either say in front of spreadsheets all day and they can make use of it. For others, we just want to have something a little bit more simplified and go, right, okay, that's how long it's going to take, or that's how many items this resource I'm going to need, or that's how long that's going to take, how long the plant's going to be there for, or what plant do I need for this job. Actually, that's a point as well. So plant used again. If you're going to be needing to hire plant, you can kind of secure that hiring of the plant before that date as well, to make sure that when you do go to the hire shop, that they actually got it in stock. They actually got the breaker there. If you haven't got one yourself, they've got the plate compactor. They've got the screed pump, whatever else that you need. You've got that ordered beforehand, so you're not going to turn up and go, oh no, we haven't got any, or it's broken down, or they've all been sent out, we've got none in, and you're bitterly disappointed. Hopefully no one's that bad. I possibly could be, but the main thing is you can again use the same thing as what we've done with the materials to look ahead, see when certain items are going to be needed by using the date required, or the even better order by date. So if I take that order by date and put that in there, take that date required and just put it out of the way, we can see that all the plant that we need to order ahead of time is done. Okay, so do we have any more questions coming through? Okay, so if we've got no other questions coming through, I'm going to be ending this webinar in just a moment. And the streamcast as well. So thank you for watching on YouTube if you have been. Actually, can see a good number of people coming through and giving a good bit of watch time. So hopefully there's been some information that's been of use. Again, I can only divulge what I think is important for you to know. But if there's something that you feel is important for you to know, and you don't know if it's in the software or not, or what might be the best way how you want to see information, the most important thing is that you tell me. You let me know. You can say, we've got this webinar I can show you and I can show everyone else. But if you want to ask that question, I can either show you the order of things in the report to put them in for you so you can see how you want them to be presented. Okay, you can do that on the support number, which is 0117 916 7899, or you can use the online chat during the day, which you'll see available to you on the support website, which is help.hbxl.co.uk, which will also leave an offline chat if we're not about eating our dinners. And you can also drop us an email, support@hbxl.co.uk. Oh, good question. So scope for search terms in reporting at some point. With the software, say the default find function isn't something that's generally working in the pivot tables, is not designed for that. Everything's kind of based around the pins at the top. So while the pins can be used to, say, filter by click the things to filter, you can search for them in there. So if you click on a pin with a left click, and I wanted to search for, let's say, plate for plate compactor, hit enter. Okay, it's going to show me everything in there that I can filter to that has that term in there. I'm going to look at plate compactor and then see what I've got there. So that's how the kind of the search function applies within the report section. And again, while it does say search, key thing to bear in mind, it is more of a filter. It's going to be quite explicit. It's not going to be forgiving of spelling mistakes. It just basically looks for the term that matches within the column that you're searching in. Okay, so the first thing is, as long as you know what column it is you want to be looking in, you can use the box at the top as a search for that as well. Okay, hopefully that answers your question on that one. Yes, this should be automatically recorded by Go2, because I didn't hit the record button on my end, but it does get recorded on the web, and we can reissue that out to YouTube or via directly. Basically, anyone that's registered can get sent out a copy. So that would be available. Hopefully, the version that's broadcast to YouTube hasn't been the greatest quality, I don't think. So I have a look at that one, but there will be kind of a tidied up version of this, hopefully sent out at a later date. But again, if there's any kind of questions that's raised from this, but you don't want to ask them at this time now, you're more than welcome to use the, say, aforementioned methods of contacting support to give us a poke. There's either myself picking up, my colleague Joe, or you might even go through to, say, Ruth or Shannon, who, depending on your question, will be able to give you hints there, here and there. Okay. Right, and so I can see that now we are coming to the end of this. We've been here an hour and a half, but you will probably want a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. Or if you're in the office, you want to be heading off soon because it is a Friday. I shall bid everyone adieu. Thank you for attending. Again, we'll be doing another webinar next month with the focus on the smart scheduler. So while this webinar has gone from certain sections to certain sections on items that you want to look at to make sure that you are managing your prices and getting things kind of lined up nicely, getting all your eggs lined up, the smart scheduler is going to be more of a focus on that one coming up next month. Explain sometimes when the quality stream is bad. Oh, yeah. I have spent the last week poking the support team at GoTo for a company that is worth millions. Their restreaming ability is something to be desired. I have done stream tests from my machine with my quality to Twitch and such, and I can broadcast at a silly high resolution at full 60 frames per second without a single drop in quality. But as soon as GoTo get their hands on it and they rebroadcast it to you guys, yeah, that's where that drop comes from. So my apologies. Thank you for letting me know that the quality has dropped in the webinar itself. that's actually really important to know, because it's one of the things we can't monitor as easy as we can with the quality for the YouTube. So knowing that, I can report on that as well. I'm actually supposed to be calling this afternoon. Okay, dokes. So with that, I'm going to thank everyone for attending. If, again, any questions, give us a poke, and I shall hopefully see you in the next webinar. Thank you and good night.